Welcome back. This is a monthly breath tip from the Patreon Breath Club. This breath tip is still fresh, but it's about 3 years old. So these breath tips, if you're a part of the Breath Club, for just $10 a month, you get access to my complete catalog of guided breathwork sessions. We do live breath work. We do Q&A. There's all kinds of things we do within this Breath Club. It's a really vibrant community full of people from around the world. So check that out, and you can get access to all of the breath tips that I've done over the years. Here is one that, and you're going to notice my beard has changed over the years, but it's still there. It's just maybe not as pronounced as it was back then. Enjoy this breath tip, and if you're looking for more, join us in the Breath Club. And there's a lot of research that's been done on sleep and breathing. And one of the things that you're going to find over and over again is that slow breathing before bed ultimately gives you a better sleep experience. And there's some research that shows that if you do between 10 and 15 minutes of slow breathing before going to sleep, this is really especially good for your heart, because one of the biggest functions of sleep is to allow for some recuperative time for your heart. So for overall cardiac health, sleep is really, really important. And we all have hearts, and those are very important organs. So it is to our best interest to get the best night's sleep possible. So I get a lot of questions as far as how should I breathe while I sleep? And this is a difficult question because you're unconscious while you're asleep. So how could you even know how to breathe? How could I change the way I breathe when I sleep? So I'm going to give you some tools that you can use and things that you can do to hopefully improve your breathing as you sleep. And then I want you to have the best night's sleep ever. So the first biggest thing, and you may already know what I'm going to say, is nasal breathing is king, especially when it comes to issues of the heart. When we breathe in nasally, we are increasing the amount of nitric oxide in our blood because we produce nitric oxide in the paranasal sinuses, and that is a vasodilator. So it opens up your blood vessels and allows those blood vessels to relax. So it opens up and by relaxing the artery. So it relaxes all of these blood vessels in your body, allowing for better blood flow to all of your organs. There's just no downside to that. And in addition to that, when we are nasally breathing, we're less likely to overbreathe. So yes, the mouth taping, which I know you've probably heard about. If you're in this tribe, you're not just, hey, I've never heard of breath work. Maybe you are, but most people are like, I'm an enthusiast. I'm really wanting to get into breath work. So maybe you've already heard of mouth taping. I personally am not a big fan of like slapping a big, piece of duct tape on your lips, but just putting a little something on the tip of your lips or on the sides of your lips. You can buy MyoTape. That's a brand that is specifically developed for mouth taping. But the goal here is nasal breathing while you sleep. And this is to ensure that you stay hydrated. This is to ensure that your sinuses do not get inflamed, because mouth breathing actually will inflame your sinuses. There's research to show that. Even if you're inhaling through the nose and you're exhaling through the mouth, you can experience sinus congestion simply from doing that. So inhale through the nose, exhale through the nose. That's the goal while you're sleeping. And when you do that, you're more likely to breathe more accordingly to your needs. You're less likely to overbreathe. You're not going to snore. And you're going to help reinforce the proper breath wave, because the resistance offered by your nose will activate your diaphragm. All of those things are going to build over time to improve your breathing all throughout the day. 24 hours a day, you'll be a better breather. So make sure that you're nasal breathing while you sleep. Now, to prepare to sleep, though, this is something that I have a couple recommendations for. One is, many people ask me, how many breaths per minute should I take while I sleep? Now, if you're a real breathing nerd, and I assume you are if you're in this tier, let's go over a few things. The average person takes between 12 and 20 breaths per minute. That's the average person, 12 and 20 breaths per minute. You might time yourself sometime to see how many breaths per minute you take. But usually the average person is going to be somewhere around there. Now, we know that the ideal breaths per minute is a little bit lower than that. In fact, if you're a fan of resonance frequency breathing, which is, according to an enormous amount of research, the ideal pace of breath, which I will say is not what I would consider a natural breathing cadence, but it is something that is incredibly well researched and studied. A friend of mine's, he's coming out with a book on that. I'm putting a little bit about that in my upcoming book, The Language of Breath. But that the resonance frequency breathing is ultimately 6 breaths per minute, or around there, depending on, we're all a little bit different, but generally 6 breaths per minute. Now that's pretty slow. And I'm not going to sit here and say, hey, you need to make sure that you time your breaths every minute of every day, or especially while you're asleep. But if you can get into resonance frequency breathing for about 10 to 20 minutes before going to bed, this is actually, I'll let you in on, that is what I do every night before bed. Now, there's an enormous amount of benefits to this. One is that you will activate your ventral vagus nerve, which is a very valuable thing to have that activated, oftentimes due to chronic stress, due to chronic anxiety, and just modern living. Being that we're very disconnected, it can be deactivated, and it can chronically stay deactivated. And it takes some time to reactivate this part of your nervous system. This part of your nervous system is especially important for creating new relationships with other people. And it's one of the reasons why I think everybody's at everybody's throats these days, because we are so disconnected and we're so stressed. So if you get into 5-5 breathing, so in for 5, out for 5, it's that simple. Just maintaining low abdominal breathing for 10 to 20 minutes per day. The research shows 20 minutes per day is pretty much the sweet zone. I do that 20 minutes per day right before bed. Okay, now that's great. What I also do, and if you're wanting to add a little bit extra value to this, is I will, in addition to doing 5 in, 5 out for 20 minutes, I'm also adding CO2 tolerance training. So what that means is I'm breathing in a little bit less volume than what is comfortable. I'm allowing myself to become what we call hypercapnic. All that means is that I am tolerating a small air hunger while I'm doing this technique for 20 minutes. Now, this is way too much for the average person who is just starting with breath work. And when you start, it's going to be very hard to maintain a breath hunger for 20 minutes. But if you can do it, 5 in, 5 out, maintaining an air hunger for 20 minutes, that is what I do every night before bed. Now, why is that what I do before bed? Well, for 20 minutes, I'm training my respiratory system. I'm literally telling my unconscious self, this is the breathing that I'm doing right now. And I'm kind of priming myself before I go to bed. I'm also challenging my natural breathing trigger, which is CO2, and I'm allowing those chemoreceptors to open up and accept a little bit more CO2. What that does is that it will allow, again, it primes your nervous system to allow for a little bit more CO2 before it takes the next breath. It opens up blood vessels, but the nice thing is, most importantly, is that by doing 20 minutes of focused breathing and allowing for a little bit of air hunger, what you're doing is you're saying, listen, we don't have to breathe as fast. We don't have to breathe up in the chest. We can breathe down low. And we're really priming the nervous system before going to sleep. Now, the thing is, okay, so you do 20 minutes of that, then you lie down and you just breathe normally, okay? Try to not think about it because you've already done the work. And if you've got a sleep tracker or something like that, you can always do the sleep tracker, and you're more likely to see that deep recuperative sleep. That's the stuff that really helps the heart. That's the stuff that, if you're working out or whatever it is, that's where you get an enormous amount of physiological benefit from the sleep. Psychological benefits of sleep generally come from your REM sleep and deep sleep as well, but that's also another thing you can start tracking. Maybe you're not tracking, that's fine. Ultimately, when you wake up, you should feel well rested. You should feel like, wow, I really did a great job last night while I was sleeping. And that is the goal. Now, the session that I released this month doesn't do 20 minutes of 5 in, 5 out. Okay, that is something that's a special tip just for people in this tier. But the one that I did release this month is especially good if you have, it's about 10 to 15 minutes. Just doing that has been shown to offer a lot of the benefits of deeper sleep and the cardiorespiratory benefits that I mentioned just a minute ago. Maybe it's not the Jesse Coomer, what I do every night, but it is something that is more likely to put you to sleep and do quite well, getting you into that deep sleep that you need so much. So guys, don't worry so much about, am I breathing too fast or am I breathing too slow during your sleep? I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. And if you're checking your sleep on your tracker, like on mine, it'll tell me how many breaths per minute I took. Understand that will change throughout the night. You have a lot of hormonal changes that happen during your circadian rhythm. And so that also means that you're gonna breathe faster and you're gonna breathe slower, depending on what cycle that you're in during that circadian rhythm. So don't freak out about that too much if you see it going up or if you see it going down. That's not a big deal. The biggest thing you can do is prime yourself before going to sleep and then enjoy that deep recuperative sleep. Guys, I know this was a little long, but hey, I'm hoping that it helps you. Again, thank you so much for being in this tier. I will see you next month for the tip of the month.